Students, welcome to this introductory session on Cleanth Brooks. Students, Cleanth Brooks is an active member of the new critical movement that outlines the use of reading poems through paradox as a method of critical interpretation. So, in this session, we will explore what new critical movement is and how paradox can be a method of critical interpretation. But first, we will have an introduction with this influential figure in new critical movement, Cleanth Brooks. Students, Cleanth Brooks is an eminent American literary critic and a professor, and he is best known for his contributions to new criticism in the mid-20th century and also for revolutionizing the teaching of poetry in American higher education. This influential critic is an eminent critic of Southern literature also, and he is known as co-founder of influential journal, the Southern Review, and this journal is considered to be very important as far as the advancement of new critical movement is concerned, and he co-founded this journal with Robert Pan Warren. And now one question might be peeping through your brains that what this new criticism is. Students, this new criticism is a formalist movement in literary theory, and its key concern is a closed reading, particularly of poetry, with an aim to discover how a work of literature functions as a self-contained and self-referential aesthetic object. In brief, we can say that the emphasis of new criticism is on close reading of a text, especially of poetry, and secondly deals with the structural analysis of literature, structural analysis of a poem. And this new critic Cleanth Brooks, as I have told you, he is an American critic. He was born on October 16th, 1906 at Murray in US, and he died on May 10th, 1994 at US. He was educated at Vanderbilt University, Nashville, Tulane University, New Orleans, and he had also been a Rhodes Scholar at Exeter College, Oxford, and later on for years he taught at Yale University, and he just revolutionized the way of teaching and analyzing or interpreting poetry during his career at university. And he wrote many books, and with his writings, with his critical articles, Brooks helped to formulate formalist criticism and emphasizing, I quote, the interior life of a poem. As I have already made it clear to you that formalist criticism or the new criticism deals with the structural analysis of a text. And here Brooks is talking about this formalist criticism in terms of emphasis on, I quote, in the interior life of a poem, unquote. And he also helped to formulate the ways to codify the principles of close reading, because only the close reading of a particular text opens up the very structure of that text. His well-known works are the well-wrought Studies in the Structure of Poetry, written in 1947, and the second one is Modern Poetry and the Tradition, written in 1939. Students, in terms of his new or objective approach, which is based upon the close reading of the poetry, he wrote 3 books for the just on the art or the way or the approach to interpret literature. One is New Criticism, Understanding Poetry, which was published in 1938. Another one is Understanding Fiction, 1943. And in this series on New Criticism, the third one is on Understanding Drama, published in 1945. And here his text, The Well-Wrote Urn, which was published in 1947, is his special contribution in the field of new critical movement. And this very text is a collection of 11 essays, and it is considered to be a seminal text in new critical school of literary criticism. And as by now you have a clear idea that new critical movement is focused only on the analysis of a poem as an independent entity, only on the text itself. So it was this very movement came into existence, or especially these essays by Cleanth Brooks, they were written in reaction to the prominent stream of literary criticism that was historicist or biographical. And Brooks opted to offer universal judgments on a poem. He opted to treat poems as self-contained entities able to be interpreted without recourse to historical or biographical information, somewhat in the line of T.S. Eliot, as in our previous sessions while talking about T.S. Eliot's essay Tradition and Individual Talent, we discussed that how T.S. Eliot emphasized to follow an objective approach while looking at the poetic process. So in the very same line, Brooks is also emphasizing on the close reading to analyze or to know a poem on its own without any interpretation based on the historical or biographical information related with the author of that very particular text. And in this book, the 11 essays, all those 11 essays are devoted to close reading of poems by John Donne, Shakespeare, Milton, Alexander Pope, William Wordsworth, Keats, Lord Tennyson, Yeats, Thomas Gray, and T.S. Eliot. And students, the very essay, the language of the paradox, which is prescribed for your syllabus, is also taken from this very text, and we will talk about this essay in our next session. Thank you.